everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 17 of Dororo. And I'll be honest with y'all, I had to go ahead and watch. I should have waited on the comments, but my moderator was busy this week, so they were like, oh, it'll take me another day to get to the comments. I was like, that's fine. And then I was just sitting here like, I don't want to wait on the comments. I want to go ahead and watch because it's literally Jukai and Dororo and Hyakkimaru. So I'm sorry. I will check your comments for episode 18. But last episode, we got to meet Shiranui, and who has the sharks. And one of the sharks is dead. The other one is probably a demon. And Dororo's tied to a tree. And Itachi is taken off of the map to go find the treasure that is Dororo's dad. Supposedly, we'll see where that goes. But meanwhile, Hyakkimaru, who is looking for Dororo, is wandering around, hobbling around on one leg, and has supposedly found where Jukai might be. And I have been waiting for a Jukai and Hyakkimaru reunion since like episode 5. So this has been like months in the making, and I'm really excited about that. But with that being said, I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm looking forward to this episode, and I just couldn't wait. So I will get to the episode reactions. I'm going to turn that light up just a hair. I'm going to be back with the reactions with the comments next week, so don't worry about that. In the meantime, I do want to give a shout out over to my Patreon for being so supportive and kind this month. I should have more coffee. The philanthropy tier over on Patreon, everybody on Patreon, I'm super grateful for y'all, whether you're in the $1 tier or the $5 tier. But the philanthropy tier, they go above and beyond each month to give me $10 a month, and that's really, really special to me. And so I give them a shout out in my videos. So I want to give a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Damage3245, to Destiny Marie, to Danger Zone, to Danny Donmai, to Devorin, to Aaron, to Eric, to Ichu, to Ghostly Turnip, to Fisho, to El Freya, Liam Polzel, as well as Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nago, Nameless, well, not Nameless Monster, previously Nameless Monster, as well as Nicholas, as well as Sunspots, Shimoyama, Translucent Men, Trails, and Starman AA. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. I think I'm just excited. I think I just have all this anxious, excited energy. And usually when I have comments to go over, that like gets me grounded and centered. But since I've jumped into this episode and I don't have any comments to talk about, I'm just like flailing like a Magikarp. Which is not a bad thing necessarily, but we are going to pull this up and look at the episode. I will tell you there are 2 ad breaks because of course there are. So those will happen when they do, and I'll edit them out. So we're going to start episode 17 of Dororo. I'm super excited, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. You know, I kind of wish that we had 26 episodes for this series now, because I feel like in trying to condense down to 24 episodes, there was so much more that could have been in this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. Don't get me wrong. I liked a lot about it, but there was a lot of parts that felt a little rushed. And there were a lot of parts that I was like, oh, I wish that we'd explored more with that, or I wish we could have gotten something else with it, or I wish we could have talked more about that. And I feel like if they had given us an extra episode, we could have expanded upon things, but it just feels like, especially Tahomaru's arc feels so rushed, and I don't know if it's going to lead me to feel satisfied with it at the end. I'm going to keep an open mind, but I'm also going to be 100 with you all when I talk in the discussions about my feelings with the episode. And just keep in mind, I have to tell people this in the comments, otherwise they're like, but you don't understand the full picture. I know. And we'll get to that, but I'm just going to tell you my thoughts right now, and then of course, my disclaimer is always my thoughts and feelings may change as we go. I always have to say that. People always question it in the comments, so I feel like I have to get that out there. But I liked the idea of the tree, the Sleepy Hollow tree, and all the blood on the tree, and then it all seeping in to create the demons, and it becomes this the tree itself is a really good representation of the cycle of violence, because you have a demon inside the tree, the demon being this malevolent, emotionless. The demon, as we know, anything that is demonic reveals a lack of humanity, right? So you have the idea of the tree that is at its core demonic. So there is no humanity. And so it feeds off of violence and of blood, and the blood creates its little demon offspring that are like little apricot monkeys that come out of the tree. And then those demons kill more people, and it just perpetuates this cycle of violence that just destroys all the humanity around it, and it benefits no one. And it's kind of a metaphor for the show. And there's a part of me that wishes that Dororo was not the only representation of humanity. And Jukai kind of is, but Jukai's so depressed and sad that he can't really have a chance to. And then the mom kind of is. She's on the right track, but Daigo dismisses her every 5 seconds. And you're like, well, there is no voice of humanity that really cuts through except for Dororo's. And I'm sure that's by design and it is intentional, but it is a little frustrating when everyone is so dour and so nihilistic and doom and gloom around you that they kind of make that the mantra. And then you're like, no, they're actually characters proving that you're wrong. And so I feel like in shows like Attack on Titan, for example, which I'm going to reference here in a little bit, I feel like with Attack on Titan, that show is so great because you get the time and opportunity to flesh out both sides of an argument and flesh out both sides. And there's lots of ample opportunities to have representations of humanity in that series. And that's what makes it so amazing. Here, because it's only 24 episodes and it's really rushed, a lot of those themes don't really get time to incubate, and they don't get time to really get fleshed out. And they just feel very surface level that you're like, yes, but, and you want to expand on it, and the show just doesn't have time to do it. And it's not really the fault of the show, but it makes you appreciate it a little less because you know shows out there that did flesh it out that are much better. So it is what it is, but I do like the idea of the cycle of violence represented in the tree. The corpses and the skeletons and everything, and the looters and everybody raiding the bodies, it just really drives home how sad Jukai is, that he just keeps going around. And the worst part is, the thing that kind of doesn't make sense for me, his home where he's camped out right now is around where they're at. So that part was a little weird, because if he was just traveling as a traveling guy, doing all of this, doing the parts and replacing, and just kept going on his way, then the looters taking the body parts as soon as he walked away, that would be really heartbreaking, and it would make sense. And he's just like, well, I just got to keep going. But the fact that he's camped out there, like, dude, Jukai, go hang out in your cave until the looters leave and then come out and replace the body parts. Like, why are you doing this while they're around? And I know that they're probably around a lot, but at some point, like during the night, they probably leave, but eventually they're going to loot all the corpses and then you can go back and replace the body parts. Like, just wait it out. It's just, he's like a glutton for punishment. And it doesn't quite logically make sense for him to be there when he could just hang out and wait for the looters to leave. Now, the old man, also the body that he replaces the eye with looks a lot like Hyakkimaru, so that's kind of really tragic. The old man that's like, why aren't you helping the living? You could save more people that way. We know why Jukai is helping the dead, because it's his atonement for the bodies that he's killed. He's like, I'm going to go back. It's like him metaphorically going back through all the corpses that he helped create and giving them a proper, distinguished death, to make up for all the loss he did. But the old man's not wrong. He's like, you could be helping the living. Why aren't you doing that? Jukai's like, well, that's just, and Jukai had the experience with the young man of, the young man calling him a hypocrite. So Jukai is kind of under the mindset, well, no matter where I go, people are going to, you're either going to call me a hypocrite for helping the dead bodies, but then if I help the living, you're going to call me a hypocrite for helping the living when I killed people. So at least the dead bodies don't talk back, But also I love this old man walked up and he's like, hey, why aren't you helping people? And it's like, well, this was none of your business. But then you see the old man is missing an arm. So he's probably like, hey, why aren't you using those arms to help me? I would need it. And then there is the demon that comes out and attacks the old man instead of Jukai. And when we get to the end of the episode and we find out that the demons weren't attacking Jukai because he didn't seem like a living being, he didn't view himself as a living being, it's like, okay. Metaphorically that works. The one thing is, whenever, and I'm going to talk about the animation for a hot second. The animation was okay this episode. Again, it's kind of dipped in quality as this second half has gone on, which is frustrating to me because the first half is so beautifully animated. And I really like this series, but the dip in animation quality is noticeable. And so when you go back and watch Hyakkimaru stabbing the demon, like, they don't even have the body of the old man anymore. It's just disappeared. And I was like, it just, whenever the show doesn't put that amount of care into its show, it gets frustrating for me to put my amount of care into caring about the show when you didn't in the animation and it's something so simple. But that's just my comment. I was frustrated with this episode because I wanted it to be longer and I wanted Jukai. This episode is called Questions and Answers. We did not get answers. We got some. We got, like, the Goddess of Mercy statue was like a big answer. And I was like, oh, okay, that part was really good. Even though Daigo's an asshole. But there, like, Jukai and Hyakkimaru, this is the most Hyakkimaru has talked the entire series, which was great. I liked that Jukai was making him, but Hyakkimaru didn't even find out his name, which we'll talk about the mama part. I love that. There's a lot of significance with that. But there was a lot off screen of Hyakkimaru getting Jukai up to date with what's going on. And then Jukai making Hyakkimaru question, you know, what's your purpose? And Hyakkimaru doesn't really give him an answer. There were lots of questions being asked, not a lot of answers being given. And I was really hoping this would be more exposition and connection between Jukai and Hyakkimaru. And it was what it was. And I appreciate what it was so much, but I wanted more. I was like, and I felt like the whole side plot with Tahomaru and the rat, we'll talk about it when we get to it. I know its significance. I know what it's doing, but I feel like they are speed running Tahomaru's character arc. They're just like, they have just sped run through. The first half of the series was setting him up really good. And then I feel like once we got to episode 11 or 12, they have just like sped run through his character. Like, they don't have time. And I'm like, it's harder for me to get invested in characters when the show doesn't give it the time it needs to develop them. And I've watched 12 episode series that were half the length of this series that did so much more character development with its side characters. So I feel like with Hyakkimaru and Dororo, we've gotten so much, and I really love the series. Hyakkimaru and Dororo are the glue that holds this series together. But I do feel at this point, we're on episode 17, and we've got like another little piece where like we got like a fourth left of the series. I feel like I am a little disappointed at the side character development. It's a very one-off series, and I know that's how the manga and the 60s anime was. I really would have liked a little bit more development at this point, because I'm a very character-driven person, so I like the themes. I like what we're getting with the symbolism. But this series so far, it's good. We'll talk about it when the series is over. I like this series a lot. I wish it would delve a little deeper. At this point, I want it to delve a little deeper compared to shows that I've watched. But I do appreciate it with Hyakkimaru and Dororo. They're like the big thing here. I also liked, like I talked about in the OP, I love the concept of Hyakkimaru smiling. When Jukai gets up to him and he puts his head up against him, it's so sweet. I loved that moment where he just rested his forehead against Hyakkimaru's. It was so cute. I loved it. I love that so much. And then when Hyakkimaru like looks at him and he says, "How terrifying you are." And the thing about it is Hyakkimaru smiles at that because I don't really think he knows. Hyakkimaru was so focused on Jukai in the moment and seeing him again that I don't think the words quite resonate what Jukai is meaning with them to Hyakkimaru. And it's like, Hyakkimaru, Jukai is terrified of you and what you've become, but you're just happy to see him. So, which I love that. I love that a lot. Again, Dororo is the connector of all this, and Dororo is our humanity. I also like in the OP at the very end, there's the two little sprigs representing both of them. Like, I love Hyakkimaru's character, but Dororo is the human anchor that he needs. And I'm glad that Hyakkimaru realized in this episode that he needs to go back and be with Dororo. He needs to go save him. He needs to be with him. He misses him. Like, I like that. I wish Hyakkimaru would talk a little bit more, and I'm curious if the 60s anime gives more of that. I'll be curious when this is over to know if that's the case. But But I do like that we at least get from Hyakkimaru that he wants his body back and that he wants to save Dororo. Of course, all paths are leading to the shark demon. I am fully convinced, since Jukai did not give him his leg back, that he's going to get the leg back by defeating the shark demon. I also believe that the show is a bit clever because so far Tahomaru has not held a candle to Hyakkimaru. So, of course, Hyakkimaru, being with a handicap physically in battle, is going to let Tahomaru be on more even keel with him. Because Tahomaru couldn't even defeat Splinter the Rat without his two buddies helping him nail him down. Hyakkimaru would have chopped that thing's head off in 5 minutes. So, I mean, they have to find a way to equal out and balance them in battle. But I do think Hyakkimaru is going to get his leg back next episode by defeating the shark demon, however that goes about. I don't like the idea that Daigo knows about Dororo. I don't like that at all. I'm like, I don't like that because that means Dororo could be kidnapped and held hostage. I don't like that at all. I also, all these moments of Hyakkimaru smiling, they're so sweet. And I feel bad because I wish Jukai could, because Jukai is so enamored by the fact that Hyakkimaru has his skin, he's getting his body back, he's smiling. There's a part of me that would love for Hyakkimaru's smile to get like explained more. And obviously they talk about it. So it's really good. But I felt so bad because Jukai was so down in the dumps this entire episode about thinking he'd created a demon and that he'd done something wrong and thinking that what I liked about the episode with what Jukai was saying to him is that for the first time, like everybody has all been up and down. Everybody has been all on Hyakkimaru's case for just existing, which has been part of the problem. And Hyakkimaru's like, I can feel you. And what was interesting, he's like, I've always felt. What was interesting is the prosthetic hand is green. Like the Mother of Mercy. Like the prosthetic hand was green. Like that was like kind of, being watched over almost. So it made me wonder if because of Jukai's kindness in creating that material, if it was blessed by the Goddess of Mercy and that's been helping Hyakkimaru this time. I don't know if that's tied to Jukai. I wish Jukai could sense that because it would make it to be where Jukai would understand that what he's doing is a good thing. Because he felt the whole episode like he was doing something bad, right? And then he says, and then he asks, what am I to you? And we get that answered at the end of the episode, which we'll tie back to it. And he's like, I gave you a body. I took care of you. I named you. He did all the things a mother did. And we might as well talk about it now because while I'm thinking about it, I love the idea that Jukai is a mom because mothers in this series have had such a significance. Like Dororo's mother showed unconditional love. She took care of Dororo. She led Dororo all the way to the end. She sacrificed herself to save Dororo. She gave everything she had so that Dororo could live. Like she was the epitome of self-sacrifice for their child, right? And then you have Hyakkimaru's mom, who showed kindness on the battlefield, even though we'll talk about it being misplaced and her realizing that this episode and everything. But she's shown this kindness and care, right? In Hyakkimaru's mind, that is a mother. It's someone that takes care of you, that raises you, that feeds you, that gives you life, that literally births you. And Jukai, in a sense, literally birthed Hyakkimaru into the person that he is, with the Goddess of Mercy's help, but we'll get to that. But I love the idea that that's what Jukai is to Hyakkimaru. He's like, you're my mom. And I love, because I kept waiting for him to say father, but father to Hyakkimaru has a very different context and a very different meaning. And I love that. I love that Hyakkimaru's like, no, you're not my dad. My dad's kind of an asshole. You're not him. You're my mom. So I love that. And then the thing that made me so sad was Jukai kept asking, did I do the right thing? You defeated it, but it felt like you were a demon as you did it. And Hyakkimaru's like, I want my leg back. I use it to fight. And Jukai's like, but that's not what I want you to do. He's like, I don't want you to fight. He's like, I want you to instead, think about what you need to do. Although Hyakkimaru kept saying, I want. He is still, even though he's talking and even though he's communicating, there is still like a base level to him where he's still figuring things out. And I liked when Hyakkimaru was sulking and he was just like with his head on his knee, and Jukai was kind of like, oh, kids. he's an impetuous teenager, right? And then Hyakkimaru's like, I can feel heat and cold and feel it all. He's like, well, old habits die hard. And then he asks about the symbol, about your family. And Hyakkimaru's like, well, Daigo, he's my dad. Let me tell you about it. He fed me to the demons. And they're still eating. Meaning they still have his arms and legs, right? And we can understand why Hyakkimaru would feel mad about that. That he's like, I was fed to the demons and they're still gnawing on my bones, and that's a problem. He reminded me of a main character from Attack on Titan. I won't say who in case if you don't want spoilers. But he reminded me of a main character from Attack on Titan who's all about, we deserve the right to the world because we were born. We deserve the right to exist in this world. When he was making that statement about, Jukai's like, why are you fighting the demons? And he's like, because I want my body. It's my body. And they took it. I should have the right to get it back. I was like, you and one of them protagonists from Attack on Titan, y'all would be getting along real great. I'm glad Hyakkimaru does not exist in the Attack on Titan universe. That would be actually kind of terrifying. I'm like, that would be kind of terrifying, actually. But yeah, he's like, what does this crest tell you? And he's like, well, it tells me my family doesn't want me. And that's the sad part. And the sad part is that I don't know how he can reconcile with his family because Daigo doesn't want him. Daigo wants him dead. The mom, maybe he can reconcile with, but I don't feel like him and Tahomaru can reconcile, which is really sad. Like what I was hoping for was that by the end of this series, Tahomaru and Hyakkimaru would meet eye to eye. And maybe that can still happen, but I get this sneaking suspicion that the series is going to end with Hyakkimaru and Tahomaru going separate ways and not being brothers and ignoring each other. And that feels like a waste to me, but I will keep an open mind and we'll see where the series takes us. But as of right now, I'm like, I don't see reconciliation between Tahomaru and Hyakkimaru because of their goals. Hyakkimaru wants his body back, which requires him to defeat the demons, which will complete. The thing about it is, Tahomaru didn't talk to the mom and is going to face Hyakkimaru now. And it's like, if you talk to the mom, then you might know that it doesn't matter if you kill Hyakkimaru. The deal's off. It's been off. The kingdom is going to go to rot anyway because the Goddess of Mercy statue is over. So, and Tahomaru doesn't realize that. So maybe he will realize that and realize that killing his brother is not going to give him the peace to the kingdom that he thinks it will. Maybe. Because the thing about it is, if they kill Hyakkimaru, Hyakkimaru's mission essentially would in some respects help Tahomaru because he's killing the demons, which ravage the people of the land, as we have seen over the course of the series. But Tahomaru is convinced that if they kill Hyakkimaru, then the kingdom will go back to prosperity. But the mom's kind of figured out this episode, no, that's not what's going to happen. Instead, you're just going to kill your brother or your son, and we're still screwed. So, and again, the blame really needs to be placed on Daigo because Daigo started this whole mess. The blame needs to be placed on Daigo, and nobody's blaming Daigo, which is the frustrating thing. Nobody is putting blame on the person that it needs to go to. Everybody is just using Hyakkimaru as a scapegoat because it's very convenient to do so. And that's very frustrating. But I'm glad that the mom wakes up and we get her part here. I loved Tahomaru in the first half of this series. I loved him because he wanted to help his people. He was compassionate. He had humanity. And then seeing him slowly become Daigo Jr. is really frustrating. He's Daigo Jr., except he cares about it. I think he does still genuinely care about his people. But the problem is, if you care about your people to the point where you're not human anymore, then are you really going to be able to care about your people moving forward? Because like what he does with the rats in the house, he's like, well, just burn it all and kill them all. No offense to Tahomaru, but that is literally what Sabame did 2 episodes ago. He burned the kids and the nun in the house to sacrifice them to the demons to save his people. Tahomaru just did a light version of that. Even though no humans were harmed in the making of it, it's those type of actions that down the road are like gateways to, well, if you don't feel any compassion towards this, then later on, are you going to do that to humans? And Jukai kind of warns Hyakkimaru about the same thing. If you keep killing demons, eventually you're going to kill people. So Hyakkimaru and Tahomaru are like skating along these parallel lines. And Jukai is like, you need something to stabilize you and keep you from going down that road. And Dororo is your way of doing that. Tahomaru doesn't really have any of that because Hyogo and Mitsu are not going to go against him. They work for him. So Tahomaru does not have a means other than maybe his mom, but he's ignoring her, of going back to that humanity. He needs that anchor. And his mom was that anchor, but now he's ignoring her. Kind of like what Hyakkimaru was doing with Dororo until he realized, oh, I need to go find Dororo. And maybe Tahomaru will realize that, but I wish we weren't speedrunning Tahomaru's character arc. Because I feel like we're speedrunning. I feel like he's like immediately doing things. And I know in the course of the series, time is passing, but he is changing. And I don't like the way Tahomaru is changing. It's just kind of like, I feel like it's a disservice to how fleshed out his character was at the beginning. And I wish we had more to it. But maybe, since we're going to focus on him and Hyakkimaru next episode, we'll start that again. It'll be episode 18, so we'll be getting into the final act. Maybe we'll dive into that. But yeah, so Jukai finds out that Hyakkimaru is Daigo's son and finds out the deal with the demons, all that jazz. And then he's like, the whole domain is weighing on your shoulders. I wish we could have seen Hyakkimaru tell him this story, because I'm like, you mean you told him all this off screen? That seems like a lot to talk about. But in that moment, what I loved was that of all the people that has been around Hyakkimaru, Jukai is the first one to give him a hug about it. Like Dororo would. Obviously, Dororo's done the equivalent of a hug this entire series. But Jukai is like the first person to give him a hug and take him in like a parent and show him, you know, not treat him like a monster, you know, which is so sad. And then, of course, you know, Hyakkimaru, he's like, you know, he's grateful for it. But then he's like, I can't give you that new leg because all you're going to do, you look more human, but you're acting more like a demon. The more you keep fighting, the more demonic you're going to become. And that's true of anybody, not just you. It's true of Tahomaru. It's true of Daigo. It's like the more violent you become, the less human you become. And he's like, I don't want to keep fostering that because I've already put you through enough. And what I like about it is that Jukai is telling him he's not going to help him, not necessarily to save the people of the land. Jukai's kind of like, whatever. But he's like, I want to save you, Hyakkimaru. He's like, I don't care so much about the fact that Daigo's country is going to go downhill if you defeat all the demons. I care about the fact that for you to defeat all those demons, you're going to have to fight your family. You're going to have to kill people. And he's like, I don't want you to become any less of a human than you have been before. And the thing about it is, Jukai is like, I have experience. I've killed people. I know what that's like. He's like, I'm haunted by it to this day. That's why I'm doing the things I'm doing. He's like, I don't want you to go through and have these regrets that I have. And he's like, you don't think you'll have those regrets now, but you will years later. And he's like, no. And of course, Hyakkimaru says the difference is that he has Dororo. Dororo is his someone. Jukai, I feel bad for Jukai because Jukai doesn't really have anyone, which is really sad. And then when Jukai says, I cannot save you, that's when the mom says, I can't save you either. And so Hyakkimaru kind of realizes the same thing is going on, that these people are, that just like his mother, Jukai is trying to help him, right? So then we go to the mom who, you know, has been right most of this series. I think another frustrating thing is the patriarchy, because Daigo's like, silly woman, get back in the kitchen. And I'm like, she has been pretty correct for a lot of this series, or she's been actively working to figure things out, and you're stuck in your ways like a 1950s curmudgeon. And he's like, and I like that she, you know, has just come back from a stab wound. Granted, it was self-inflicted, but the trauma that caused her to self-inflict that. And he's not like, oh, I'm glad you're better. He's just like, never do a foolish thing like that again. I'm like, oh, well, thank you, Daigo. Thank you. That's really what you should tell somebody that's hurt themselves when they first wake up. And she's just like, God. I feel bad for the mom. I was like, girl, you deal with a lot. You really do. And then she she's like, I offered my life, but what worth does it have? And Daigo's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, do you remember the headless goddess of mercy? She's like, it lost its head when Hyakkimaru was born, which was the lightning bolt, right? And she's like, I thought that it was a gift and a token of faith. And I like she has a new one there. She's like, I kept praying for it for my son. When I heard he was alive, I thought my prayers had been answered. She's like, but no, I was vain. That was very vain of me. Okay, so now it's gone, right? And she's like, Hyakkimaru survived because the goddess of mercy offered its head to the demons. I love this moment because she's like, I thought that my prayers saved my son, but she's like, I didn't realize how little power I had in that moment. She's like, I was being vain and thought that it was me that was saving him. She's like, that was selfish. It was the goddess of mercy who offered her head to the demons to keep his head that kept him alive. And I was like, oh my God, which she explains here and says that she's like, why else would his head be intact when all else was taken from him? Yeah, like the brain and everything. You'd think the demons would have gone for that. That all makes sense now, right? So I was like, damn, she Sherlock Holmes the hell out of this. And she's like, I felt it plain as day when the goddess head was smashed. And then she says, among the 12 demons, there was one who failed to eat my son. Which is the one that's in the Hall of Hell, right? That hasn't taken root. And of course, Daigo, I like Daigo's like, I do like the animation of him like grinding his teeth because he realizes that she's correct. She's like, now that the goddess of mercy is broken, your deal has been broken off. So she's like, yeah, Hyakkimaru is going to gain his body back by killing the demons. And she's like, and the prosperity of this land is not going to be anymore. So I feel like Tahomaru needs to know that them killing Hyakkimaru does nothing. Them killing Hyakkimaru, it won't matter. The deal is still off. The place is still going to go to hell because Daigo's deal, because the mother's love and the goddess of mercy broke the deal off from Daigo. I feel if Tahomaru knew that, he might have a different idea about the entire situation, but Tahomaru isn't paying attention to his mom, and Daigo will probably not let Tahomaru see his mom because he doesn't want these overthinking thoughts to be shared. I'm like, she is in the right, y'all. She is sharing things as they need to be, and it's like, I just really just want, I guess by the end of this series, I want Daigo to get his comeuppance because he has not had any comeuppance so far. Everybody still thinks he's a great leader and that it's not his fault. And I'm like, no, we need to fix that up. So they talk about Dororo, which I don't like. And they're like, have Tahomaru go to meet up where this kid is. I'm just like, and they're like, well, actually, my lord, he's already on his way to deal with this ghoul. And then we get the whole rat situation. But I'm curious that Daigo, after watching his son, get his eye taken out by Hyakkimaru, was so okay with him going to face him again. Again, I think that speaks more to Daigo's character, that he's a coward and he won't go face his son himself. He would send his other son to go face him, which I'm like, what was the point of having an heir if you're going to send him to possibly be killed? Like, what? So who knows? But yeah, so Hyakkimaru and them digging out the hole, and that's when Jukai is like, we could stay here and talk for a little while. And I wish they would. I wish when he said they had the supplies and they had the room, I was like, Hyakkimaru, you could stay with him. You don't have to leave yet. Just stick around. But so frustrating. So frustrating, y'all. I was like, no, don't leave. He's like, you asked me why, and I would ask you the same thing. Why do you fight? If you leave the cave, you're just going to go back to a world of evil. And he's like, do you want your body back? And he's like, I do. And Jukai makes a decent point saying, you have something that other people don't. If you become fully human, it may only be a burden to you. You'll be very mortal and you may, get sick. You may die. He's like, the body you have does make you special. But I love that about Hyakkimaru, that he's like, I want my body. Like, why would I not? He's like, I want what was taken from me. Is that not my right? And it's like, yeah, no, it is his right. But then that's when Jukai brings up, if you keep fighting, every last demon, you're eventually going to hurt humans. So then, meanwhile, we have them fighting Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. With all that. And then instead of going after the rat and killing it, then we see the other babies and stuff, right? And he's like, your body is yours and you don't need a reason to want to get it back. He's like, but in the process of getting it back, will you still be human at the end of the day? And he's like, I don't want you to end up like me and you'll be alone. And that's when Hyakkimaru remembers Dororo, and he's like, and he points to he's like, I have someone. They're not here, but I know that they're here. And again, Hyakkimaru doesn't use Dororo's name. So I think in the long run, not using the names is helpful in a way too. I mean, the mom symbolism is amazing at the end, and so I get that. But the less Jukai knows about Dororo, the safer Dororo is. The less people know about Jukai, the safer Jukai is. Because otherwise, I fear that Daigo would go after Jukai. So the thing that's really sad is that we see the rats, and there's obviously the big rat, and they're like, well, we could just kill the big rat, leave the little ones and go. They're not bothering anything. But we have here's the difference is in this episode, which I do really like. The difference is I talk about this series being surface level, but then it has a lot of deeper meaning. So I just, I say one thing and then I break it down. I'm like, well, I'm probably wrong about that. There is a lot more meaning to it. But I do like this parallel where you have the tree, you have the rat. You have the rat has all of its babies. The tree has all of its babies. And here you have Hyakkimaru and Tahomaru. Hyakkimaru is labeled as a demon, labeled as going down this dark path where it will never be able to regain their humanity left. And then you have Tahomaru, who believes they're doing the very human thing of protecting their people. But then you look at their actions. And you have Hyakkimaru, who's supposedly the demon, going to be a demon, lose their humanity. They don't burn the tree down. They don't cut the tree down. They just kill the demon within the tree. And by killing the demon within the tree, it kills all the other demons that were surrounding it. And it saves the tree, right? It just takes out what is necessary, and that's it. Then you contrast that with Hyakkimaru, who, instead of just killing the rat demon and seeing if the babies died or dispersed and then they wouldn't be able to survive, whatever, he burns the whole entire building down, killing the demon, killing the offspring, and destroying the building that could be used by someone else, which in itself is the less human act than what Hyakkimaru did. And it speaks to the idea that Tahomaru, that concept of, being connected to your parents, it's like, well, this was a demon, they're going to be just as bad, just get rid of them. And I'm like, well, pot calling the kettle black when Hyakkimaru is your brother and the son of your dad. So that contrast was really, really interesting, right? But Jukai, he's like, I thought I saved that poor baby, but all I did was make it flow down a river of hell. And I felt bad because I'm like, Jukai is so, I feel like Jukai and the mom are so similar because they both believe that their actions are having all of these negative and or positive impacts on Hyakkimaru, when the mom in this episode kind of realizes the full picture. And Jukai kind of realizes the picture by the end, but at the same time, it's like, Jukai, Hyakkimaru wants to live, and he's happy you allowed him to exist. If Hyakkimaru didn't care about his existence or felt bad about it, he wouldn't be fighting demons to get his body back. So I'm like, and he loves you. Like, he smiled the most since Mio this entire series. And then he's like, maybe I'm just another demon to you. And I was like, Jukai, you are not another demon to him. He loves you. You're his mom. And I'm glad that Hyakkimaru got that to him by the end. I really am. Also, the concept of the tree having a demon inside of it. And I loved the tree concept. The tree concept of the demon was amazing this episode. I loved it. I thought that was a really cool idea for a demon. All of these storylines, I like the symbolism behind them. They just all were so quick. And I wanted them to be just a little bit more drawn out because I really like these characters and I wanted to see more with them. But yeah, I'm telling you, the whole thing with him burning down the house, it feels very Sabame. It felt like it. And then when Hyogo's like, I understand what you're doing, but I don't approve of your methods. Yeah, I like Tahomaru's character so much, and I don't like the way that he's headed. Especially when he says he's like, I'm never going to, let my feelings blunt my sword. And I'm like, but being a human is so necessary. And you need humanity to handle a weapon, because otherwise just give it to a robot, give it to a drone. There's no emotion there. And we see how that goes. So you need humanity to fight, because humanity lets you draw that line and know where those lines are. And I not only hate that Tahomaru is saying that they're giving that up, but then Hyogo follows suit and they're like, I'm not going to be burdened by emotions either. And I'm like, why are you all being this way? Like, it's making you more demonic and less human. And I hate that. I'm so frustrated by it. And I feel like Dororo had to be like the one giving advice to the bandits. Like, maybe Dororo needs to give advice to Tahomaru and them. And he's like, there's someone in your life that is not your inner enemy. That person may be able to keep you human. Yeah. And then Hyakkimaru asks his name, and he's like, oh no, I'm not going to tell you my name. And he's like, I'm nobody. And he says, I know what you are. And then he says, you're my mom. And that was so sweet. And Jukai being like, well, you got that wrong. And it's like, no, I don't think he did. And then at the end there, whenever, I love that shot of when Hyakkimaru and Jukai, like the sun starts coming out and he just kind of looks at him crying, even though he can't see his tears. When Jukai gets bit by the demon there at the end, which would, granted, hurt like hell. And he's like, I wasn't alive in your eyes until now. And he's like, I guess I still have the right to die. Yeah. I'm like, Jukai, my dude. Like, think more of yourself, sir. So meanwhile, they're like, I can't believe our Lord is making the young master go kill Hyakkimaru. And they're like, well, it's for the good of the land. And they're like, I've made up my mind. I'll not let my feelings guide me any longer. I don't know. It just feels like them saying that. He's like, I too will not let my feelings sway my sword any longer. It just feels very, I don't know. It just feels a wee bit surface level. Like, I don't know. It just feels, I don't know. I'm like, I hate that they're like, well, we'll just kill him and we're not going to question it anymore. And I'm like, I just feel like that's speed running that entire character arc. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru is like, I'm going to go and find my sister. So bye. While Hyakkimaru is leading them alongst the way to go to this island. He's like, we're going to go there and kill him. Hyakkimaru's. And that's the sad thing, is that that's kind of what Jukai was telling him about, being like, you want to kill the demons and get your body back, which is understandable. The problem is that along the way of you doing that, you're going to have to fight people and possibly kill them. So the question is he going to have to fight Hyogo and Mutsu and Tahomaru and hurt them? Maybe. Are they going to get distracted by Itachi and the bandits instead? Maybe. I don't know. I don't want it to sound like I'm not liking the series, because I realized as I was going through this discussion that it might sound that way. I'm really enjoying the series. I get so much out of it, and I'm greedy. I want more. I'm greedy and I'm impatient and I want more, and I will be patient enough to wait until I answer some more comments from the episodes that have just come out before I move forward. But I'm really kind of nervous because I don't want Hyogo or Mutsu killed. The whole thing with Hyogo saying, I'm not going to let my emotions guide my sword anymore. And I'm like, that's a red flag, death flag if I've ever seen one. So I don't know if I like where this is headed, but I guess we'll see. Anyway. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. Please, no spoilers. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah. I'll be back very soon with more Dororo.